The Xyra Empire prided itself on strength, purity, and dominance. Their rulers were warriors, their bloodlines carefully curated for perfection. Weakness was not tolerated. Princess Xyra had been a disappointment from the moment she was born. A malformed wing, a weaker frame, she was an insult to her lineage. Her father, the emperor, had tried to hide her existence for years, keeping her away from the public eye. But today, her shame was being made official. The grand hall was filled with Xyra nobility, warriors clad in gleaming armor, their eyes filled with disgust as they watched her stand before the throne. The emperor's voice echoed, cold and absolute. She is unworthy. No warrior will take her as a mate. No ruler will accept her as an ally. Let her be discarded. Xyra stood motionless, her expression unreadable. Inside, she burned with silent rage. She had fought to prove herself, studied warfare, outthought generals in strategy games, but none of it mattered.
To them, she was defective.
The nobles laughed. Some muttered that she should be sent to the slave colonies. Others suggested exiling her to a backwater planet where her disgrace would be forgotten. Then, a voice cut through the noise. A voice that did not belong to any Xyra. I'll take her. Silence. All eyes turned toward the human standing near the back of the hall. Captain Daniel Reeves had been sent as part of a diplomatic envoy. He wasn't a noble, wasn't a warrior by Xyra standards. Just a human, a species the Xyra considered insignificant. The emperor narrowed his eyes. Explain yourself, human. Daniel didn't hesitate. You say she's worthless. I don't see that. His voice was steady, unwavering. I see intelligence. I see someone you're too blind to recognize. The hall erupted into chaos. Xyra nobles snarled in outrage, some demanding that Daniel be removed immediately. The emperor studied him, then scoffed. You wish to take my disgrace? Then do so. But understand this, she will have nothing. No title. No protection. You will be seen as a fool, as she is seen as weak. Daniel shrugged. I've been called worse. Xyra turned to look at him for the first time. Her violet eyes were unreadable. Why? She asked quietly. Daniel met her gaze, without hesitation. Because strength isn't about what you're born with. It's about what you do with what you have. The emperor waved them away, already dismissing them from his mind. To him, they were nothing now, forgotten, irrelevant. But as Xyra walked beside Daniel out of the hall, something inside her shifted. For the first time in her life, someone had chosen her. Not out of duty, not out of obligation, but because they saw something in her worth standing beside. And that, she realized, was a power the Xyra would never understand. The ship lurched as enemy ships appeared on the scanner, their aggressive approach unmistakable. Xyra stood in the command center, her eyes fixed on the data stream. The words from her brother echoed in her mind, but this time, she didn't feel fear. She felt anger. Do you have a plan? Daniel's voice was calm, his eyes scanning the ship's readouts. Xyra didn't hesitate. We won't outrun them, but we can outsmart them. Daniel gave her a sharp look. You've got something in mind? I do, she said, voice steady. We'll use their arrogance against them. Xyra turned to the crew, who were watching her with curiosity. They were used to Daniel's leadership, but now they were about to see something different. She was a strategist, a mind trained to analyze, to find the weak point in an enemy. She ordered them to prepare for battle. As the Xyra ships closed in, Xyra outlined her plan. Their fleet would expect a straight fight, human ships against superior Xyra firepower. That's what they wanted. But the humans didn't think like that. They thought in ways the Xyra wouldn't anticipate. The crew worked quickly, setting up decoys and false energy readings to make their ship appear weaker than it was. Xyra smiled grimly. The Xyra would underestimate them. It was their greatest weakness. She turned to Daniel. This is it. They'll try to corner us. You sure about this? He asked. Yes, she replied, stepping forward. We'll let them think they have us, and when they're in position, we strike. Full power to the weapons on my mark. As the Xyra fleet moved closer, Xyra could feel her pulse quicken. This was her moment. Her brother's arrogance had led him to believe she was helpless, that the human would be an easy target. But that was the mistake. She wasn't weak. And she wasn't alone. The first shots fired from the enemy ships, but they didn't hit their mark. Xyra had expected this. The decoys worked, drawing their fire into empty space. The Xyrath ship circled around, trying to gain a tactical advantage. Now, Xyra commanded. With a swift motion, she hit the button. The ship roared to life as the weapons came online, unleashing a barrage of firepower. The first Xyrath ship exploded, its shields failing under the sudden assault. The remaining ships faltered, unsure of how to respond. Daniel watched as Xyra moved with precision, every command sharp, every movement calculated. This was not the broken princess. This was a leader, a warrior in her own right. The enemy was caught off guard. Xyra's tactics were flawless, and they had no answer for the sudden offensive. Within minutes, the battle shifted in their favor. The Xyrath fleet, once confident in their superiority, was now scrambling to defend themselves. Xyra watched as her brother's flagship loomed on the scanner, a symbol of everything she had once been told she couldn't be. She didn't hesitate.
She ordered the final strike.
With one clean move, the flagship's engines were disabled, its weapons useless. Xyra's brother was defeated. But more than that, it was her victory. The Xyrath warlord had underestimated her. He had seen her as weak, a burden. Now he saw what she could do when given the chance to prove herself. And he learned the hard way that the true strength of a leader didn't lie in their physical power, but in their mind, their resolve. Xyra stood tall as the remaining enemy ships retreated, the battle over. She had done it. And for the first time, she knew her place wasn't in the shadows of her family's throne. She was her own person, a warrior, a force to be reckoned with. Daniel approached her, his face unreadable as usual. But there was a hint of something in his eyes, a respect, perhaps. Nice work. Xyra simply nodded. It wasn't just me. It was all of us. And for the first time in her life, she knew she was part of something greater than herself. She was no longer a princess. She was a warrior.